Witness with stay.
Your Honor, I have no other questions for the defendant.
Redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Madonna, we were talking about benefits that you received, or benefits that you received and your family received from being with Jose or dependents with Jose. Were you getting those benefits before his death?
Yeah, the only benefits that my family ever got, we got medical benefits a year after he and I were married, so those started in 2010. And then the only other benefits are the educational benefits, which are as long as the dependent is in college full-time.
And you said that Jose Perez would have to die from something related to his disability in order for you to possibly receive anything else, correct?
Yeah, the way it works is if a disabled veteran dies, it has to be of something directly resulting from what they were considered disabled from. And if that happens, then there's a financial thing where it's only if the dependent is destitute that they would possibly get something very small.
And would you be entitled to alimony if you and Jose divorced?
Well, he paid alimony to his last wife, so I assume that I would be entitled to alimony.
And you guys didn't sign a prenup or anything like that that would preclude you from getting alimony if you and Jose just divorced?
No.
Whenever you went out with Jose that day, when you got home from South Carolina, you said you were in the house for about 10 minutes?
I was in the house for about 10 minutes.
And you said Jose was in the garage when you came in the house?
Jose wanted to throw out the garbage because I had like wrappers and stuff. I had a couple of coffee cups in the car from the trip, and he wanted to clean out the garbage from the car.
And you said, let's go take a ride, and ended up going to the Family Dollar?
Yeah, he started driving first until we got to Sheetz, and then he said he didn't have his wallet with him. So at that point, I started driving.
And when you say you went for a drive, is this something that you guys did regularly?
Yeah, money was tight to the point where sometimes all we could do was go for a ride together. There was no money to go out and eat or anything like that, so sometimes we just went for a ride.
And you said you knew this area well. You had lived in this area before.
Yeah, well, I had volunteered for the Franklin County Humane Society, and they were based in Youngsville, so most of my experience was driving back and forth from Youngsville to Rollsville. Yeah, so I know how to get from Youngsville to Rollsville.
When you first met Jose and you first allowed him to move into your home, that's when he told you he was dying of cancer, correct?
Yes.
And you found out soon thereafter that he was not dying of cancer.
Yeah, I found out within about 3 months that he wasn't dying of cancer.
But you still married him?
I still married him a year later.
Okay. And did you know about him not having any money at that point in time?
I knew he had no money. I had started to figure that out when his car got repossessed, so I knew there was no money, but I loved him.
And did you know about the trust fund at that point in time?
Yeah, the trust fund was never even really that was never really I knew about that right in the beginning.
And did you find out about lies after the fact and that didn't cause you to divorce Jose? Or after you got married that didn't cause you to divorce Jose?
I found out that he was lying, yes. At regular intervals in our relationship, he would lie about a number of things.
And Jose, we talked to some about your graduate school debt. Were you paying on that regularly at that point in time, or was it just sitting in collections for the most part?
I can't really remember right now at what point I was paying regularly, and then I may have stopped for a couple of months, and that's when it went into default. I believe I was on some kind of payment plan with them. It's hard for me to remember right at this moment.
And did Jose bring his own bills and his own collections thing into your marriage?
Yes, he did.
And how do you know the magnitude or the amount of the bills that he brought into the marriage?
I don't.
But he had, do you know if he had any kind of bankruptcies that were already on his record?
When we first started working on the credit, he had no credit history. And I thought that was really strange because he was almost 60. And so I was like, Jose, how do you have no credit history? I'd never seen that. And he said, my father was the Secretary of Education in Puerto Rico, and he bought me my first house, and he bought me all my cars. He said, so I have never had to pay for anything because my father was the Secretary of Education in Puerto Rico. I would find out later, after this incident happened, that he actually had a bankruptcy and a foreclosure. And yeah,
What did you know about the bankruptcy and the foreclosure?
he had told me that he had co-signed for a house for his daughter in her first marriage down in Florida, and that she defaulted on the loan, and that had affected his credit. That was the only thing that he told me in terms of ever owning a piece of property or anything.
And this is stuff that you're finding out after you guys are married,
Yes,
and you still continue to be
I
married?
still stayed with him, and yes, I continued to stay married to him.
And we've heard a lot about your, I guess, your sex life with Jose. Did you guys you said you still had sex once a week?
I had sex with him once a week.
And was that amount of sex satisfactory to you?
I would have been fine yeah, I mean, it was fine. It was fine. I felt like and again, I was raised kind of old-fashioned, and I don't know, I guess I felt like it was he earned it. I don't know, I don't even know how else to describe it without it sounding wrong, but, it was fine. I didn't mind once a week participating.
Because we've heard a lot of letters or stuff that you've written about the sex life. Was that stuff that you wrote after the fact?
Yes, none of those letters were from when we were together. I might have mentioned to my friend, I know Ms. Shandles made reference to something in June that I had finally told somebody that Jose had sexual difficulty. And I did tell my therapist also. That was one of the parts.
When you came back from after the incident with Jose, did you clean up some in the garage first before you went inside the house?
Yes.
And you said we had a lot of debate about what you were wearing whenever you came in and saw Rachel. But at that point in time, did you still have those same clothes on?
When I came home, I was still in the black shirt and the blue pants. At some point later, I changed into my night clothes, and I was still probably going back in and out of the garage.
And you had blood on you from the incident, from the fight with Jose, correct?
Yes, I did. It was on my arms and my neck, and I don't know if it was on my face, but it was definitely on my arms and on my neck.
And was it on your clothing as well?
I believe there was some on my clothing.
Anna, when you're talking about having this soul adventure with Mr. Richardson, how was it? How many months did this this, I don't know if you can call it affair, but this flirtatious communication, how long was that going on?
It started the day that we played that gig in the band, so that was for 6 days altogether.
So all those text messages that we saw of the going back and forth and soul adventure and all that corny stuff, was that a period of 6 days?
That was 6 days, and it's horrible.
And we've heard a lot about the letters that you have written, and specifically this letter to Paul. did those all occur recently at this point, or when did those letters start going out to Paul that sounded like that?
Those were between July and August of this year.
So approximately 2 years from the incident that we've been talking about. For the
Yes,
past few weeks.
2 years after the incident.
Have you gotten any money or any benefits from these letters that you've written to people that Ms. Shandos was talking about, publications and things like that?
No.
Have you gotten any offers or any kind of letters, publications, book deals, or anything like that?
No.
Are you aware that the law doesn't even let you benefit if you're found guilty of a crime like this?
Yeah, I just want to be able to talk to other women and let them know what happened so they can avoid a situation like this in their own lives.
When you were writing all these letters, Ms. Shandos asked you about why you didn't apologize for or ask for forgiveness for the death of Jose.
Yes.
And that was specifically because you were told not to talk anything on your letters, correct?
My lawyer has told me many, many times, do not talk about your case.
And when you're saying my lawyer, you mean myself and Ms. Grimes at this point, correct?
Yes, I have gotten in a lot of trouble with them on more than one occasion. I have been reprimanded seriously by my lawyers.
And when you're talking about the day before when you had called a lawyer, that was not us, correct?
No, that was not you.
That was an attorney that you were working for, cleaning his house and doing paralegal work for that, correct?
Yes, that's right. had been working for them for about a month when this happened.
So whenever you got the message that you had police at your house, that's when you called that other attorney, correct?
Yeah, that's what I decided to do, was to call Catherine.
And that other attorney is the attorney that on that night you were telling lies to at that point too?
Yes, I lied to him as well.
And in these, when you're writing these letters, you weren't just told to not write about the case, you were told not to write letters, period, correct?
Yes, I was told not to write letters, and I didn't listen.
And similarly to Rachel, on the day when Rachel came home and she saw you bleeding, she told you to call the police, didn't she?
Rachel told me to call the police that night.
And you didn't listen to her.
I did not listen to her either.
So you don't listen to good advice.
Apparently not.
No further question, Your Honor.
Redirect or recross?
You said, Ms. Madonna, that the letters that we had talked about in court were all from the last 2 months to Paul. Is that right?
Well, you read a lot of letters to Paul, and I have been writing Paul for 2 years. The ones that I'm talking about are the ones where I was more revealing more personal stuff about myself. I believe that those were in July or August, maybe June at the earliest. But Mr. Collins and I have been writing regularly since October of 2013.
What about from August of 2013?
It's possible.
Did you write to him on the 8th of August 2013 saying, please include the phrase self-defense in your mantra or meditation? It's what my lawyer has to fight for on my behalf.
Yes, I believe that self-defense is my mantra, and it has been all day, all time I'm sitting here on the stand.
You told Paul that's what my lawyer has to fight for on my behalf. You didn't tell Paul that's what it was, did you?
My position is that I had to defend myself to my husband that day, and I have been saying that since this happened.
And since the 15th of August 2013, you were writing him letters telling him to come to the window so you could show yourself at the window.
Paul came with his dog Friday before she passed away. Paul used to come down there and flick
you
his
answer
light.
the
Oh, I'm sorry.
question?
Yes, Paul used to come down there with his dog, and I would go stand at the window and wave.
And you started writing to him about that on the 15th of August, 2013, not just the last 2 months, correct?
He went to the window pretty much right after I was sent to jail. Paul started coming to the window regularly to support me, yes.
The question is, did you start writing to him in August of 2013 about coming to look at you in the window?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have no other questions.
Anything further?
There is obviously, I guess, a ramping up of the letters that you wrote to Paul over these past 2 years, correct?
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything along those lines?
Nothing else.
Thank you, ma'am. You may stand now.
Thank you.
Further evidence on behalf of the defendant.
Your Honor, that will be defense evidence.
Being rebuttal evidence on behalf of the state.
No, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to excuse you to the jury room for just a few moments. While you're there, do not discuss this case among yourselves, neither should you form or express any opinion about an issue in this trial during this time. That's your excuse to the jury room. Counsel, I've received a note from the jury, which I will mark as court exhibit, or juror exhibit 11. It reads as follows. In the state's cross-examination, Ms. Madonna stated she swam at the Carr Wakefield YMCA. In full disclosure, I have been a member at the Carr YMCA for 13 years. I've never seen Ms. Madonna there, nor do I recognize her. I thought it was important to be honest about my membership. I did not know until this morning's testimony that Ms. Madonna was a member there. Anything for the state?
No, Your Honor.
Anything for the defendant on that?
No, Your Honor.
Any motions on behalf of the defendant?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, we will review a prior motion for, to dismiss on each charge on the ground that the evidence is insufficient as a matter of law. Every element of each charge is supported the submission of the charge to the jury, and that submission to the jury would therefore violate the 14th Amendment. Further, the defense moves to dismiss each charge on the ground that after each charge is a variance between a crime alleged in the indictment and any crime for which the state's evidence may have been sufficient to warrant submission to the jury. And therefore, it would violate Ms. Madonna's constitutional rights to a fair trial by allowing this case to go to the jury at this point. Your Honor, we would just be resting on the same arguments we made before during closing. We don't believe there's anything sufficient to go to the jury in regards to premeditation and deliberation beforehand for this case, especially in regards to first-degree murder. But overall, we would ask that the murder charge be dismissed.
Motion is denied. Now, I'm prepared to go into a charge conference, which we'll have, but for the jury's circumstance, do you want to argue today, or you want to argue Monday morning?
Your Honor, it would be my preference to probably go on Monday morning. We've been here for a week and a half. We have a lot of stuff to go through, and obviously with Ms. Madonna's testimony, I have a lot of stuff to prepare for in regards to the closing. I think it would behoove both the state and myself, or the defense, to have this weekend to go through it. I don't want to be in a position where we both do our closings and then just ask them to have the charge conference on Monday morning, especially with the amount.
No, I would have the charge conference
excuse me.
there.
Yeah,
We're gonna have the charge conference now.
I got you. Yeah, I understand. But not, and then just having the jury come in here and be charged and then sent back out without hearing any evidence whatsoever, or at least what we believe the evidence has shown, especially with the inquisitive nature of this jury so far. I think it would benefit everyone for them to hear our arguments and our opinions of the evidence on Monday as opposed to sending them home for a long weekend today.
Do you want to say anything? I'm going to honor his request, but.
You're going to allow his request?
Mhm.
Then I'm not going to say anything.
Okay.
There's no point.
The other thing is, you need to talk to her. What Harbison is really about is arguing to the jury to find a defendant guilty of a lesser included offense rather than the main charge. And although we made an inquiry before we started, I think it's appropriate and necessary to have that inquiry again if in fact you're going to make that argument to the jury.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. And we definitely will.
Fine, I'll give you a chance to do that. What I'll do is I will bring the jury in and excuse them until Monday morning at 9:30. You may talk to her. When you have satisfied yourself as to that, then you can let me know and we will proceed with the charge conference, or I'll proceed with an inquiry of her.
Yes, Your Honor.
Anything for the record for the state?
No, Your Honor.
Anything for the record for the defendant?
No, Your Honor.
You may bring the jury in.
Here's another one I was thinking about.
All of the evidence in this case has been presented. I'm required at this time by the general statute of the state of North Carolina to conduct a charge conference with the lawyers. That's where I tell them what I'm going to tell you so that when they make their closing arguments to you, they will know what I'm going to say. We have those and some other things that we have to do. There may not be enough time today, given where, anyway, the best thing for us to do is for you to have a recess until Monday morning at 9:30, keep you from having to wait around and be back there. During the time that you're not with us, it is your duty not to talk among yourselves about this case. It's your duty not to talk to the parties, the witnesses, or the lawyers about anything. It's your further duty not to talk to anyone else. Don't allow anyone else to talk with you or to say anything in your presence about this case. As I told you when we started out, that's a hard one, particularly when you go home and you have your significant other there, you can't talk to them or anyone else about this case. If you get any information from whatever source, in whatever form, about anything touching on this trial, need to tell the sheriff about it the first thing when you come in Monday morning. Avoid reading, watching, listening accounts of this trial. Don't do any independent research or investigation on your own about any issue touching on this trial. I'm going to give you all the law that you'll need. You've heard all the evidence presented. You should not have to have anything else. You're going to get to have the benefit of the lawyer's arguments to you, but you shouldn't have to have anything else outside of this courtroom in order for you to return an appropriate verdict under our law in this case. Now, with that, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to need to leave your notes in your chairs. When I allow you to retire to begin your deliberations, you'll be able to take them with you, but not before. With that, ladies and gentlemen, while everyone else can remain seated, I'm going to excuse the 13 of you and ask that you return and assemble in the jury room Monday morning at 9:30. That's your excuse. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hobbs, you're most important in all right now. Most important. The fact should reflect that all of the jurors are absent from the courtroom. If you had an opportunity to talk to Ms. Madonna.
I have, Your Honor.
And do you need her permission in order to ask the jury for something, find her guilty of something less?
Your Honor, we're still going self-defense, but
I understand that.
Yeah.
But we have self-defense, we have we have voluntary manslaughter.
prepared to also request that we need permission from Ms. Madonna to request that the jury find, if they don't find self-defense, to find her guilty of voluntary manslaughter.
Okay. I'll do that after we have our charge conference.
Oh, excuse me,
So you'll have the opportunity to see what I'm thinking.
Okay. Huh.
Okay, that's fine.
All right.
Council, we're now convened for the purposes of a charge conference pursuant to Rule 21 of the General Rules of Practice and General Statute 15A-1231. Let me say at the outset that at the conclusion of my instructions to the jury, I will ask each of you if you desire to be heard pursuant to provisions of Rule 21 or General Statute 15A-1231. If you do desire to be heard, you should approach the bench and I will hear you at the bench out of the hearing of the jury. If, when you are at the bench, you advise me that you want to be heard on the record and out of the presence of the jury, I will excuse the jury and hear you on the record as you have requested. It is my intention at this point, you may talk me out of it if you make a good argument, to submit to the jury 4 possible verdicts in this case: guilty of first-degree murder, guilty of second-degree murder, guilty of voluntary manslaughter, or not guilty. I think that's what comes from the evidence in this case. I've prepared proposed verdict sheet and instructions in this case, and I've got a copy for each of you. You may approach the bench or the sheriff may provide these for you. Please review these and see if you have any additions, corrections, or objections to these instructions. So I had the state of North Carolina.
I have no objections to the instruction that the court has given us. Are you intending to give other additional instructions?
Burden of proof, reasonable doubt, credibility of the witnesses, weight of the evidence. Court has circumstantial evidence. Court has no opinion, unanimous verdict. Anything further?
Testimony of experts?
If you want one on the testimony of the experts, I will be glad to give it.
I don't think it's, I just didn't know if you were going to give it or not. I'm not asking for it. The only thing that I was going to ask for was 10521, which is false, contradictory, or conflicting statements of the defendant.
105.21.
Yes. And 10560, evidence of the defendant's character trait. And the only other thing I had intended to ask for was circumstantial evidence, but you've already got that in your list.
I must have missed, I didn't hear any evidence of the defendant's character trait.
That she repeatedly testified on the stand that she lied, which has to do with a character trait of honesty.
Nobody has testified as to her character. Do you object to that one? Okay. Do you object to the false statement of the defendant?
No, I'm trying to pull it up. I think it may be something that said that you did give a false statement, but I'm trying to pull it up here myself.
Okay, I'll see if I can pull it up. Prior statement? Oh, no, you get,
No, that's 10520.
okay, false or contradictory or conflicting statements of the defendant. Have to state.
No, Your Honor.
Anything would have the defendant.
I didn't know if you were inclined to give that 10521. We would object to that. I think impeachment by prior inconsistent statements is probably the proper charge, given that it specifically asks for something that needs to be highly relevant to the trial. They already knew that Jose Perez was dead. The fact that she was saying that he had gone to Florida is not indicative of her guilt in it. It was just a lie that she told. So I think that's covered by inconsistent statements and statements that she made. But I don't think that's the fact that everybody knew that Jose wasn't in Florida and their investigation wasn't diverted because Jose was found right there and not in Florida. It's not a highly relevant lie in this matter. So I think a prior inconsistent statement would obviously be an umbrella to cover the statements that Ms. Madonna made.
Now, other than those, any additions, corrections, or objections on behalf of the defendant?
No, Your Honor, I think that was satisfied.
Okay, I will not give those. I will give 105.20, which is the, let me go back. Maybe I won't give that list there. Actually, there was, unless requested, I won't give that. Any objection to that on behalf of the defendant?
Your Honor, we would object to that as well. We don't need to be heard any further.
How's his state? Statement made by the defendant, although we've got things that are all over the place.
We have testimony of statements made earlier by the defendant to numerous persons through text messages, letters, and conversations that...
Do you want this?
Yes.
Okay, I'll give that one. Now, is the state of North Carolina going to open and close?
Just close.
You going to make one or two arguments to the jury?
One argument, Your Honor.
And are you going to make that?
I will make that, Your Honor.
Do you have any idea what length?
I would anticipate probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I will know better this weekend, but I would anticipate that for them. I will not go over the 2-hour limit.
Is there going to be one or two arguments on behalf of the state of North Carolina?
One argument, Your Honor.
And
I'll be doing that. And I will do my best not to go past an hour. But I'm not promising.
yes, now we may stand. Ms. Madonna, place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand, and be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear the answers you give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure that you are giving your permission to your attorneys. You don't have to. You're the boss. As to whether or not they can ask the jury to find you guilty of nothing more than voluntary manslaughter rather than not guilty.
Yes.
You understand that voluntary manslaughter, and I understand you don't have any record in this case, that, and there are no aggravating circumstances, that the maximum sentence you could receive on that offense would be a 16 to 29 month active sentence. Do you understand that? So, do you give your attorneys permission to do so?
I do.
Has anyone forced you in any way to make this decision?
No, sir.
Has anyone promised you anything to get you to make this decision?
No, sir.
Are you making this decision separate and apart from your attorneys and what you find to be in your best interests?
I am.
As you stand right now, you've just testified in front of this jury, but to be, are you now under the influence of alcohol, drugs, narcotics, medicines, pills, any other substances? And when was the last time that you used or you consumed any such substance?
January 21st, 1992.
And so as you stand right now, you're under no mental disability at all. Is that correct? And you are satisfied with your attorney's legal services. Is that correct?
I am.
The court's going to find that she's satisfied with her attorney's legal services, that she's authorized them to make this admission to the jury or this request of the jury, that she did so freely, voluntarily, and understandingly. That's for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further for the record for the state of North Carolina?
No, Your Honor.
Anything further for the record for the defendant?
No, no.
Madam Chair, is this to you today? You open? We'll recess us until Monday morning at 9:30.
Airport stands in recess till Monday
You got
morning at 9:30.
Are you going to extend your commission to next week?
I did that last week.
Okay.
I did two,
From week to
including,
week.
two and including Monday of this week, continuing
Okay.
day to day thereafter for completion of this trial.
Just checking.
I already done it, it's in the file.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Superior Court stands at a recess till Monday morning at 9:30. Guys, say this thing is not report.
I didn't remember.
Okay.